the parties, the women's organizer post. Look, because we live our lives a lot to spread them out in the communities. Women can control them. Leeway with the money we have them. All of these things, and we are bringing them. I want to leave you with it. We went to 8%, and now it's not even low. Low is even. It's. I think it's less than 5%. I think it's 3.8. It's not even a number. It's a blip. It's a corruption. Corruption is not only about the exchange of services, money, influence, positions of power. Corruption is also about the absence of representation. Anytime we distort or do not follow our constitution, when we deliberately thwart our constitution, it is a corruption. When you deliberately take people, and I'll be talking about this, preventing people from representing themselves, it's a corruption. So the low numbers is a corruption. We must bear that in mind. So as a woman, when you don't see yourself reflected in spaces you know you must be in, you know it's a corruption. It's a corruption. And it's a power system. I'll come to that. The madam from NCC spoke. So what I'm going to do is lay the context, the current situation and the environment, and then what we should do. Some of it has already been said. The madam from NCC talked about our constitution. And it is true this our constitution needs to be amended. It's a starter constitution. But even as a starter constitution, it's highly aspirational. We are always to aspire to our constitution. We are not to bring our constitution down to our level. We are to rise to where our constitution, to the society the constitution has put on the paper for the vision for our lives. So anytime you find yourself, people say things like, oh, as the majority that doesn't function in the constitution. You should go to your constitution, and that is where the people we need to be, the kind of society we need to be, it's laid out there. So it's an aspirational document. The other thing I want to say is that I have a lot of things to say before I say what I have to say. It's a big is that when you look at the words, and we have gone through, if you look at our coat of arms, it says freedom and justice. It is the best coat of arms in the entire universe. And I have looked at other people's coat of arms. I'm not saying this because I'm a Ghanaian. And if you look at our national anthem, if you look at the words, people say, what is a Ghanaian? No, a Ghanaian is supposed to be a freedom fighter. More than anything, if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be a freedom fighter. If you're a Muslim, you're supposed to be if you believe in African traditions, if you don't believe at all, wherever you live in this country, whatever group, whatever your income, we are to be fighting for our freedoms. We are freedom fighters. So again, since the representation of women is so low, that is why it's a corruption. We are not even rising up to the fighting we need to be doing. So that's a Ghanaian. Nobody asks what's a Ghanaian. No, I don't define it as a Khan or Ewe or the Ghanaian is a freedom fighter. We need to remember that. So our constitution, fabulous as it is, has laid out a lot in this area. Madam talked about Article 35, Clause 3, 4, and 5 promotes just and reasonable access by all citizens to public facilities and services. Article 6 seeks to achieve of the same clause, Clause 6 of 35, seeks to achieve reasonable regional and gender balance in recruitment and appointments to public offices. Ghana is in flagrant violation of its own rules. Article 6 also indicates that the state shall afford equality of opportunity to all citizens and particularly take all steps as to ensure the full integration of women into the mainstream of the economic development of Ghana. Therefore, there must be women on the finance committee of district assemblies. When we talk about ourselves as a people, people we like to compare ourselves with the abroad. But when we want to feel good, we think we are the best country on this continent. which we are not. But we should compare ourselves to ourselves and our history. This constitution, even the proposed affirmative action bill, which must pass, these are not new ideas in Ghana. We had affirmative action in Noah's time. So again, the corruption is also that as a people, from where we started, the ideas that we started this country with, we have corrupted ourselves away from the path. There is a country we have lost. This constitution seeks to address it, and anytime we don't meet it, we are not finding that country. Under Article 37, freedom of opportunities and rights for effective participation. And it says promoting and protecting interest in the development process to help us engage in self-help and income generation. The promotion and protection of the rights of the disabled, aged children, and other vulnerable groups in the development process. This is all what we said we were going to do. The local government arrangements that we have allows for effective participation of both men and women in governance and decision making. These are big ideas, so what does it mean? It means that when they call us into the room of the local assembly, there should be women on the seats. There should be the disabled on the seats. In fact, you are not advancing society if most of your seats are occupied by able-bodied Ghanaian men. There should be people who come from marginalized areas in the seats. From Abantu's own press release, it says the objective is to make these assemblies effective centers of self-governance, intensify mass local participation in decision-making, planning, and in sustainable development processes. The motivation is to support democracy and afford all possible opportunities to all the people, to participate in decision-making. Therefore, the local government system is required to embrace equal participation as a core approach in order to promote accountability, fairness, justice, I would add freedom, and access to all national resources. Our local government arrangement is also a decolonizing tool. This is something we don't like to talk about, decolonials like Ghana. Sometimes people wish the white people were still here. But when you are decolonizing, when we had independence, which was actually a flags, we switched flags. They took their flag, we put our lovely flag, the best flag in the world. We were also supposed to decolonize because everything in this country was geared towards mobilizing resources for the British. So when you are independent and you are decolonizing, what you are seeing now is that not only the decisions, but the resources, the very energy of this country will go towards what? Local. That is decolonization. So if you're not doing that as well, we are failing independence. So I think that if you look at independence and decolonization as a human being, Ghana is still probably 3 months old. We are still babies. Time has just passed this off. So you also need to think about what does it mean when we say local government. We want our wealth, our energies, our resources to come down to your streets. Just like Auntie Hamida said about her street making her sick. Women's lives. So here is the actual situation. Women, we live our lives in the local. We are local people. More than even the men. Our markets are local. The roads that are bad are local. That's supposed to take our produce to the markets. Cry is bad. That's local. Our farms are local. When the men bring in the fish, the couple of fish now, that is local. Our dressmakers, hairdressers are all local. The water is local, the electricity is local. Even though we like to really this VRA and ECG, your water arrangements are local. The schools we take our kids to are local. Nobody gets up from West Akim and decides that I'm taking my child to, I don't know, secondary school. Our schools are local. Our hospitals are local. When we give birth, it's a local decision. our churches, our mosques, women, our lives are local. So it is as simple who should be running the local assemblies, because everything at that local level affects us. If your local area is empowered to help you live a livelihood that generates more than a living income, you see what I'm saying? You're local. It's your local. Every time you have to get up, sometimes I'm like, I want to buy something on Spintex Road, and people are like, Kinna, go to Accra. That's how I know the local is not working for me. Because Spintex Road should be affordable for everybody. Because that's local, right? So every time we drag our energies and what we need to do from our local to the central, when we are not doing decentralization, all we're actually doing is making women's lives very, very, very difficult. So what do women do? We are clients of the service municipalities and local authorities providers. When they trained us in Ghana, when I mean I mean the political people, they trained us, when your water goes off, you start insulting the president. You're like, ECG is a big entity. How do you wrap your mind around ECG?
Appreciating that we work with diverse people, the marginalized, the vulnerable, with everybody. Everybody's voice must be heard. That is what it's all about local governance. So if we're not able to do this, it means we are failing on one bread. At West Akim Municipal Assembly, in the 2015 district level election, Abantu sponsored about 5 women to come into the assembly system, but unfortunately none of them was able to scale the mark. In 2019, out of the 6 people that were sponsored for unit committee level, 5 of them sailed through. 5 of them were also sponsored to be assembly women. 3 of them won the elections. And as we speak, I have 3 women elected assembly members within my assembly, and all of them were sponsored by Abantu to come in. So ask yourself, without Abantu, would have been having 0 elected assembly members at my assembly. The issues that we need to focus on is how do we get more women to come into our assembly system. There are 2 ways. You and I are aware that the election constitutes about 70% of the assembly members.